desperately trying to find.
Oh yeah, we'll see if I can.
Because
we are now on the internet.
Are we actually on the internet already?
Literally on the internet. Yeah.
Oh my god! It's
Are we live?
again.
Yeah, we are.
We are. It's happened again.
I'm texting somebody.
That's fine. You're in. Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna keep doing it.
That's
fine. That's the correct approach for this.
While you text, Tim, I'm going to tell a very quick story about one of my favorite memories, including you, Tim, which was one day I realized I had a massive amount of cleaning up to do around the house, and it was just one of those times where I didn't have any content to listen to. There weren't any podcasts gripping me. So what I did was I sent a very formal address, a very formal letter to Tim openly on the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, asking if he wouldn't mind doing a live stream at about 5 o'clock my time, or maybe 7. And he obliged, which was amazing. So now I welcome anyone else who would like Tim to do a live stream for them at any given point. I can assure you he will do it without question.
Just email him.
Email him everything.
Call him on Facebook Messenger. Call him.
That happens. That happens more than you would think. And if I don't pick up, it's not because I don't want to talk to you. It's usually because I'm deadly in the middle of something. It's like I was in a meeting for work, and so all right, I'm gonna put it out there, Lloyd. I finally got my comeuppance.
Oh yeah,
yeah. When I invite everybody in the group to watch the games I run, and not for them to play in them, Lloyd always flips me shade about it, and I take it. I'm like, listen. Earned, but I'm still like, you know what? I'll pay that piper. So I'm like in the middle of a work meeting, and I got like 4 Facebook calls from someone in a row, and they messaged me like, "Hey, what kind of character do I need to have ready, and what time is the game?" And I thought, oh man, I can't wait for the opportunity to tell Lloyd this, and I feel like this is the best opportunity.
This is the correct time.
Yeah, you with about 700 character concepts whilst you're desperately trying to concentrate on your meeting. I love it.
Yeah. So
bye guys from this place. Yeah. Oh my God.
So yeah, but thank you, Rob. That was a great. And honestly, I love doing live streams, and it's been very busy at day job, so I haven't really had a lot of free time. But I feel like we're coming into a season where I will, and so I love doing that, taking a lunch and just talking to whoever's around.
Mm-hmm.
They were great, man. I'm really enjoying your recent posting on Tabletop Terrors, actually. Like,
thank you,
doing
man.
your videos there. It's been really great, man. It's been fantastic.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, Doty churched up that joint. Like,
Doty's the best at that.
He churched it up so good. So the thing is,
like nobody's business.
Like nobody's business. Well, because when you have 2 brothers doing something like that, it's so easy to just go, yeah, man, let's just do it. Let's just do next week. We're busy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a third party, he's like, and James and I are committed, but now we have someone who is on the other end who, if we don't show up, he's like, hey, why didn't you guys show up?
I think our strength also is when we have someone who's coming on, because then me and Rob feel like we have to actually do it.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday, but it is 9 o'clock. I suppose we could go to bed.
The other week, I messaged Lloyd saying, I forgot. We said we were going to do something today, and it was literally the time before as we were starting. Yeah, literally didn't even think about it. So, yeah.
Well, we're
here now.
We've made
it. Here we are.
Yep.
The Dice Cast.
Important thing. Welcome to the Dice Cast, the seminal role-playing game. We're not going to talk about it this time. The seminal role-playing game podcast. As you can now see, we are greeted with Tim Kearney, who's going to help us with prepping session 1. This is what this episode is going to be about. And let's start with a question. Tim, what do you think is, what do you like in a session 1? What do you feel you respond to?
So I'm going to tell you, I'm real bad at this. That was my question. My question to you is that I feel like I crush session 0s. I have those under control. It's a combination of Lloyd's questions plus like Jeff added some, and then I just tweaked a little bit. And I'm good at gathering the info and making the players feel excited about the game. Where I have trouble is deciding what is season 1, episode 1. Like, what theme do you start on? What character do you focus on? or do you not? Do you have, that is it. You've got all this information. What do you start with? That's always the trouble for me. So I'm bad at it. So I'm the wrong person to ask. So what do I like in a session 1? Someone else DMing it.
I don't know, man. I remember watching a game you ran where the players began being crucified. And not only was that a character moment where everyone was sharing the same ordeal, which was something that brought them together as a party, it also introduced the world of Dragongrin. It let you know from the get-go, you're going to come into this game and you're going to be crucified. And I think for me, I don't really think about it like this anymore. Usually if I have to do a session 1, I kind of do it and I don't really think about it. I write down a few notes, try and structure it as best I can, and then just see what happens. But I've realized it falls into 3 things, really. I think you have to introduce your characters. So character, you have to give a social sort of dynamic so you can explain what's going on in the setting or the world or whatever, what part of the world you're in, and then some kind of obstacle to overcome, whether that's in the long term or whether that's something they have to deal with in session 1, like escape prison or get crucified or whatever. What about you, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think you want to establish normality in session 1. This is what things are usually like. This is how it's been before this, and then this happens, this thing. So this could be anything that gets all the characters together in one place and going, what do we do now? So in old ways recently, it was like the news that the king was dead and he legitimized all the bastards and there's potentially going to be a war. That was the inciting incident. It didn't affect them drastically personally. It's just like some information that will change the way things usually are.
That's great.
So
and something... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say something interesting about that session where we started as being crucified. That actually, there was no session 0 for that. The pitch for the game was, hey, do you want to... I am going to run a Dragongrin game. Do you want to figure out who the character are in real time? And the only hook I'll give you is you will start out crucified. And that inspiration came from, I love the Savage Sword of Conan, the old black and white Marvel comics.
Yes.
Those magazine style, just some incredible artists. And one of the issues is the whole issue is Conan crucified. And that's like pretty much the whole thing and the different people that visit him but he's up there the whole time. And so that has stuck with me because it's funny. My dad would let me read that stuff way before most dads. So like it's this basically R-rated Conan comic, and I'm reading it at like 10. Thanks, Dad.
A positive, but also minorly scarring.
Yeah. And it stuck with me, and I was like, that's really cool. And I thought, what a really interesting way, because I don't have a solution. Like, figure it out. But so the reason why I bring that up is because I think if I would have done a session 0, I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to do that. And so it just kind of broke something in me talking about it. Like, just do that, do that cool thing and pretend it might only be the only session you'll ever run, because sometimes that is what happens to campaigns.
100%. Yeah. And there's the old adage from Chris Perkins, isn't it? Don't use a cool idea you have 10 sessions ahead. Use it right now. But I think it's really important. You've obviously found something that you really resonated with, that Conan issue or whatever, and you decided that was the inciting incident. That explains everything about the setting. It puts him in a predicament, puts him in a challenge. It's got everything. What do we think? Is there anything else beyond the inciting incident? Is there anything else that has to be included? Like, how do we introduce our characters? Do we just ask them and let it do it?
Yeah, the cheat code that I do is I say, character name, you're in place.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Tell me about it and what you're doing. Right? So no matter what game, no matter what setting, no matter what, that works. So you say the character's name and you say, you're in this place doing a thing that you usually do. Right? So if you're a mechanist in Harbinger, like you're underneath the ship and you're like, in the bowels of it and you're crawling around and you're pulling this thing and this fucking thing is broken again like it always is, and you can establish a bunch of details about the setting, I guess, with that, and then say, what are you doing? What are you thinking? That sort of thing works super well. And you can sort of like, or another thing that you can do is like, they've all been called to a place or they'll have to go to a place. All right, you're arriving at this city and you're moving. This is what I did recently in my Greek game. I was like, okay, so this is the deal. You're all in Mycenae and the market, and you're walking through it, and you see this. What do you think? It's like a good way to sort of get the game underway, and like with low effort on your part, it gives the player a lot of opportunity to sort of talk about their character, who they are, how they respond to things, or whatever.
I dig that a lot.
A useful way of doing it, I think.
So. Yeah. One of the things that I think, so I'm going to immediately steal both of those. And it's funny because when you say it, it's codifying it and quantifying it like that. I know better. I should do that because I play in plenty of games where that's how they start. But having you tell me that, I'm like, oh, okay, so here's the other thing. So the difference between your game, you would show something that, like, to actually take it a step further and add the two things that you mentioned, Rob. In Dragongrin, what you're going to see in the marketplace. So I'm recommending now, as it clicks, I'm like, put the thing that establishes the normal, as you mentioned, Lloyd. So in Dragongrin, that might be a public crucifixion that no one is paying attention to. Mm-hmm. Or in Far Wide, it would be something totally different in the marketplace. But what you get to do is say, this is how things are. Here is a like sort of flagship thematic element happening. That is a really good idea, Lloyd. Like, and the same thing with you talking about like the character in the place. I love that because if you make it the place that they mentioned in session 0 that they wanted to be in, like the black market, immediately they're like, so that's really, really smart. I'm stealing both of those whole.
One of the things that we talked about with the session 0 is you get everyone to like make a place. So pick a place that's important to them. Pick a place that good. Whatever. So then you have this.
Going to change the dock now.
Big list of places where you can start the game. It's also fine to like ask the players where do you want to start the game, and then discuss that, and then do that.
They're also with I was just going to say with the session 0, as we discussed in the session 0 episode, like that kind of acts as a blueprint for not just the first session but the whole of the campaign.
Yeah.
And as this is something, I mean, we're talking as if we've had this session 0 happen already, but. With those materials in the session 0, when you ask a player, okay, you're in the marketplace, and this happens or whatever, they've already experienced the session 0. They know there's a marketplace there. They'll have had thoughts about that. You're not dropping them in the deep end. They're not having to scramble to make up something like about a location they have no concept about. You're involving something that they've already input into the session 0. So, because I know a lot of people can feel like if you turn to them and say, character name, you're in this location, this has happened, what are you doing? Sometimes people can freeze. Some people, they have to think about it for a moment, need some time to let it breathe. So I think that's a bonus of having the session 0 inform a lot about what happens in session 1, particularly about what your characters know and what they experience.
So in the chat, Barker says that you can establish something about a character. So he talks about superhero movies where you can show the characters kicking ass without any real stakes, and you can establish that like these are very powerful people or they're very scary or whatever. You can do that in session 1. We've done it with Niscloff games before, where you start the campaign with a raid and you're landing on the beach and you're killing people, and you establish who you are and what you do sort of through that.
That again is informing the setting. Like Isclough is a whole setting based around people raiding each other for supply or resources or position or whatever. So again, that it just links into the game that you're kind of playing, for sure. I'm actually just bringing up that chat now.
I was just gonna say me too, because Barker's in there, so I'm like, I need to be talking to everybody.
So our plan today is to prep the first session of this campaign. Campaign that we've called Renegades. The pitch is the players are Marrow legionaries who basically it goes one step too far, and a bunch of them under the sort of manipulation of an agent break away from the Legion and go and start to be rebels.
We also determined in the session 0 that it would be a good idea to begin the game after that decision has been made. So the again, like I think the great thing about what you said, Lloyd, about the introductions is that it drops you into the immediacy of the moment. You're here doing this. Like if that is you're here, you decide in this very second that now's the time to desert, then that's an awful lot to happen in the very first moment of the game. And also, you kind of want to be united already in a position where all the players are sort of on the same level to begin with, at least.
Right. You don't want to leave too many things to chance in a situation like this where one player could be like, actually, I'm good in the Legion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know? Exactly it.
Something you guys said last episode that I thought was really brilliant, and I don't remember which one of you said it. So just pretend that I think you know who you are. You know which one it was.
Obviously,
right, of course.
Obviously.
But you talked about how if you don't have a session 0, you have it anyway in session 1, and it's just messy. That's paraphrasing. But like all the stuff you accomplish, like you say, joining together, relationships, all those things. If you don't do it in a session 0, session 1 becomes, okay, now I walk in. And then everyone does the thing and do I trust you? And then by the end of that session, you're basically not as far as you would have been in a session 0. And it was really probably cringy and painful a lot of the way or bumpy. So I really think that's good advice. Like do this so that you can start unified.
Yeah. And I know that feeling because I mean, I on many occasions have encouraged having characters start the game not knowing each other, because at least in the games that I was running then, like part of my mind was sort of trying to make me feel like, oh, that's where like a lot of drama will come from, a lot of the players' characters learning to trust each other. Like we play these games to tell stories and to have them resonate in such a way. But usually when that's happening, it's in TV shows where it's carefully written to allow those characters' motivations to shift in. In a game, it's completely different because people make different decisions. They might have had a bad day at work and decide, actually, my character's not going to take your shit today and is going to stay in the Legion, you know? And there's, you know, so I think there's definitely an advantage to be gained of, again, keeping everyone on a moral and same position and status and everything like that to begin with, at least.
Then if we're kicking off this session, then we want to start with the decision's been made and something has happened. So I think there was a talk when we did one of these with Barker about the boot on the neck. Was that what it was?
That's right. Barker, that was a really great image because it kind of, once again, like the crucifixion, completely tells you exactly what you need to know about Dragongrin in like one moment. A boot on, you know, on someone or whatever, and tyranny being at large. That's a great place to start. I don't think that should be a player character. I think that should be something that the other characters are witnessing. If we're going to say this is a marketplace, we keep going back to a marketplace. Why don't we keep it? Perhaps in this marketplace, they witness this event. And in doing so, they can then react in whatever way they wish, knowing that they've recently deserted the Marrow Legion.
So if we think about like an incident that would drive people who are potentially loyal legionaries to the point where they don't do that anymore, like I would think that it takes a lot, because there's obviously going to be indoctrination and things like that in the Legion, right, before you get to the point where you're out there. So then there must be something has happened that's so drastic that has driven them to be like, okay, I can't do this anymore, and I'm going to attack this person who is my boss.
Yeah.
Right? Effectively. And my boss is like a professional murderer, you know? Like,
yeah. And have you decided, so, and in your Dragongrin, all these things should be whatever you want them to be. So like, you know, as being one of the guys who wrote the book, I'm just going to bring up some interesting conflict points that exist in the lore. But I always emphasize, like, bend, break, and shape this to your Dragongrin. This isn't like, actually. It's more like, so have you decided the ranks of those defecting? Because that, to me, has implications.
That's very interesting, and my mind, because we last time and Lloyd emphasized this really well. The marrow, the way that he's. Don't let me speak for you, actually, Lloyd. But you said that it kind of reminds you of the Roman Legion.
Yeah.
And we've been I've been involved in a game where there was a Roman Legion that we were both in and whatever, and the dynamic of having one person in charge, actually was really good. Mm-hmm. So it would be quite cool for maybe one of the players to be a captain, and then maybe the others decided to go with that captain.
Yeah, if we think about like what a squad of Marrow is, I don't know.
If it depends. Like
10-ish, like 10-ish boys. Like,
so I'll be the first to admit to you that I don't remember, but I'm gonna look. Because
if it's similar to a Legion, you'll have like roughly 10 boys. It's 8 in a Legion, but I think 10 makes more sense in modern.
So
times.
Section. I have the crease in house. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No. So what I was gonna say is on page 421, basically, it says it's 10 and it's called a skull of marrow. Basically, up to 10 is a skull of marrow, and then it goes into a spine, which is 100, and then. Then there's 1,000 and 2,000. And no, we didn't continue to call them other bones. But
you've got a tibia of marrow over here.
You've got a radius.
You got a mandible.
A femur. A femur of marrow. An old hip. No, I had an idea.
More bones.
Right? I don't know if this would fit for the campaign, but it felt like, I don't know if you've ever had this happen in your life where someone convinces you to do something and then they bail on you. And you're like, well, I'm here stuck now. I don't know if this would work, so feel free to shoot it down. What if an upper ranking, so maybe like a captain, I don't know, maybe even a commander, gets a group of people to revolt, and then they have a golden parachute. And they're like, you know what? I'm actually going to go X way. I'm going to go here. I have a real sweet setup in Uldane. Or the Granocthane are going to, they're going to take me in, they're going to protect me, but good luck. But you've already defected. There's no unringing the bell. But the person who was supposed to have the plan and do that, now you're like, well, we've defected. What do we, I don't know if that would work at all, but that's just how I imagine a book starting or something.
Yeah, I think one of the things we thought about was one of the characters, so one of the players, would have been planted in the Legion to do that. So like one of the Undying Light or a Copper Jackal or something.
Yes, that's right.
And they were like raised to infiltrate the Legion. So like raised and taught all the prayers, taught all the whatever, all the correct words to say, all the right things to think, and then infiltrate the Legion. And then when they find themselves in a good opportunity, so maybe it's this, maybe they're in the marketplace and they're with their skull, but also the captain is there, because for some reason there's someone important in the village or whatever. And this really important marrow is there, and they see an opportunity to like take that person down and then get out of the Legion and take these people with them, sort of something like that.
Maybe even to the point that that person would maybe already know that the person who's getting boot stomped at the moment is someone that the surrounding village actually really love and will actually like break to defense, so they take that as an opportunity to escape whilst everyone else rushes, and there's like a pocket-sized revolution that erupts in like a backwater town. And then I suppose that could like spin into a whole Magnificent Seven kind of deal where maybe you kind of defend the town for the actions that you've set up in helping free these people, or you run, which would probably be more sensible.
Yeah.
In which case you're then in a pursuit game and you're in a survival game where you realize we've got this many days head start. We have this amount of rations and the cruisers and houses are on our tail as well. Like,
yep. I think maybe you're trying to get to a place that the double agent knows about that's safe. So if we get to this place, I have contacts from the Undying Light and they'll hide us. We have to get there first.
Yeah. So that's the objective then. There we go. So we have our inciting incident, the reason behind it, and we now have what the objective is that's set out in that session 1. We know we have to get to the Undying Light rendezvous point.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
And you've got, the Legion after you who have magicians and like they can find you, you're not hiding really until you get to be safe. So you've got like, I guess session 1 is, okay, you're in a marketplace. Oh, oh God, we've killed the captain. Oh, that's a big deal. Oh, what do we do now? Oh, and then you're running. Session 2 is, oh God, we're running. Oh God. And then session 3 is either you're dead or you make it, right? Like,
that's awesome.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say that's awesome. And I was going to just say, so an optional subsystem in the book that could be really useful right here, especially because it'll make the characters feel like they're, having an actual consequence to what they're doing. We have a subsystem called infamy. And that's actually on page 370. And if you do these kinds of things, you can get infamy. And depending on, and you can decide as a GM, like, is it, for a couple of days, few days, and there's some rules in there. But essentially what it means is that in that area, you either have like neutral reputation, a dark reputation, or a light reputation. And there are roll tables with levels. So like the more infamous you get, so this would be like probably like level 1 or even maybe level 2 infamy, where, a local leader approaches you about X or Y, or locals keep their distance from you, or a Marrow Sergeant confronts you. Like it's different things that happen based on your reputation. So I don't know if you guys are going to use that in the game, but this could maybe be a good time to assign infamy to the players.
Right. Like, not only are you deserters, which I imagine are extremely unpopular in the Legion, right?
Yeah.
But you've also killed like a high-ranking leader who's probably like famous, right? If you're like a captain or whatever, you're in some degree famous in Dragongrin. Like,
sure.
People celebrate you somewhere. He's dead, or they're dead. That's a problem. And then you have this infamy, and if you get to a village, I guess you're like flipping a coin to see if they're like, yeah, you killed that fucker, or oh God, you did that, we're gonna get you,
Yep.
What was that page again, Tim? Sorry, I'm not on the book.
Yep, it's I think the infamy section starts on 370.
370, perfect.
And the other thing too, Lloyd, is like there's the element of, hey, if we turn that guy in, they'll treat us pretty nicely for a while. We
might get a reward.
That's cool.
Yeah,
exactly.
The thing is that another thing we discussed, like in session 0, something we really want to sort of make apparent is that it's a really, really difficult choice to want to do this, because effectively people will be paid to try and hunt you down and kill you. You might find that someone that you're working with decides that they would like to take the bounty themselves and betray you. Like, it's not a particularly easy life. But for that reason also, I think the character concepts have to be entwined quite closely, because while betrayal is fun and dramatic, I think it has to be agreed upon at the very beginning.
Yes.
that will be something that has to be worked to and happens not openly to the characters, but openly in terms of a gaming group, I think.
Yeah, I think you need people who, like, so the characters are in the Legion for whatever reason, right? And there's a million reasons why you might be in the Legion. You've been drafted, or you, like, went there because you love it, or because you're a noble, or because whatever. 100 different reasons. But whatever it is that you've been doing has driven you all to the point where you're like, actually, this is not what I was told it would be at all. Even the people who like it are like, this is not right. So then there's a point where you all sort of make that same realization together, and that's why you step out. So you need a reason to tie you together, basically. And it could be you're like, you find it morally reprehensible what you're being forced to do or whatever, that could be something to tie them together, I guess.
Yeah, and so based on the theme, and again, just brainstorming, based on what you're talking about, I feel like I would maybe start them off, because infamy can wear off. So as days pass, and it's designed like that as a game master, it's very narrative. So like I would maybe even start them on having like 4 or 5 infamy, because it will make everything more interesting. So like a couple examples of that are like a commoner who is short on their 10th has sold information about your whereabouts because they were short on their 10th. So so now you're found. Or like one of them is a thematically fitting meal is named after you in a local tavern. Like
amazing.
Things that will make you feel like, oh God, this is bad. And then let them slowly either gain infamy or lose infamy. So I would maybe start in the 4 or 5 range.
It would be a really cool session to arrive at a farmstead and them to like welcome you and let you eat dinner with them, and then in the night, I mean this happens in so many movies, but in the night there's like shunk 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 shunk, oh shit, they ratted us out, they're coming, you know, like
yes
classic war movie stuff, like that's
knocking on doors, like flaming torches in hand. Oh my goodness, that's terrifying. I honestly think that's terrifying. And there's a lot of, how much of a challenge would we say is moving in open, just open territory? Like, are they going to still be in their marrow armor? Like, how much time has passed? Like, can they disguise themselves? Are they going to pretend to be marrow still?
good question. I think,
do we set that up first?
If I'm playing, I'm keeping the armor so that I can storm into villages and make demands. They don't
100%.
know I'm a deserter, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And most of the uniform is covered face anyway.
Yeah.
So like,
You have
except for
anonymity.
whatever regiment. Yeah. So you have the helm and the veil. So you're right. Marrow would know which deserters are, which actually out of canon, I don't know how I would tell the different Marrow apart, except for like, it's not written in the book, but I'd probably give them different insignias or markings that were to the regiment or the legionists that they're with or whatever. So only the adept would know, like, wait, hold on, I know you.
So it's a sort of disguise, but also it's the disguise that points out there are Marrow here. So if you're Arcseers or whoever, like, who are scrying for you magically or whatever, they can find you more easily because they can read the thoughts of people who are like, weird Marrows walked into our village, you know? But yeah, I think that's good. It's like a blessing and a curse.
And this person that would be hunting you probably has done this before. Like, one of the things I like about, in fact, a Dragongrin villain that was in that session, I can't remember his name, but I remember him being joyfully casual about the whole affair. So I think whoever the villain is probably looks on these escaping renegades as just like a routine job. But is also incredibly good at doing that job, I think, as well.
It's like a 9-to-5 situation, like another day, another group of 5 idiots who've deserted the Legion. All right, send the whatevers, you know? I also think, like, if you're in the Legion, collateral damage is not a problem to you. The message of no one gets to live if they desert is more important than, like, a village being destroyed in the process. So they could send any shit after you. Like, it doesn't have to be like clever, crafty little assassins. It can be like, well, we've summoned this monster and it's gonna just destroy this village with you in it. You know, like important is the message that no one escapes the Legion or no one deserts.
And suddenly the advantage of having anonymity with that armor kind of shrinks a little bit, then, doesn't it? Because
definitely. So
it's not a huge advantage.
Exactly. And Barker mentioned this in the chat. There's actually a lot of really good stuff going on in the chat.
I'm just realizing I'm going to open up again.
But the sort of weird scrying magical marrow are known as Arcseers. And they ride these. There's a painting by Alexander Kostic of one on page 430. And this is, I mean, like, essentially our sort of Witch King. Like, these are definitely Ringwraith inspired, kind of like higher ranking. And the Dismembered Lord uses this thing called the Crucible. It's like a heat map of potential good things and bad things happening. And their helms are dialed into the Crucible, which is why it has that weird like glyph. And they can also see through the eyes of their mount. So this is the kind of thing that would probably come after them, because it's their job is to go, oh, okay. And here's something interesting too. The way that we set up Dragongrin is there might be a world in which the Arcseer sees an eventuality, meets them, peers into them, and says, carry on, and then leaves for a week. But then comes back and says, okay, now it's time to die.
Right. That would be super fucking scary. Like,
wouldn't that be the coolest?
He's just like watching and he's like, And you're like about to club the captain and he's just like, yep, that's fine. And then like vanishes and then, freaky.
Yep.
So much of this game will take, like, I can see that there's so much drama happening at checkpoints, like we're saying, house searches and things like that. I think that's incredible. Yeah, facing off against people, not knowing if they know who you are or not.
There was awesome. Talk here in the chat of that they could have a psychic branding on legionaries, and I think like
I saw,
if I was running the Legion from the very top, every legionary would have to give like a lock of hair and some blood.
Oh yeah.
on day one, right? So then you can always scry them, you know?
Hashtag your Dragongrin.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. That's a brilliant thing. That's my canon now. That's in my Dragongrin too.
So perhaps that becomes the second objective once you've got to the rendezvous point. Now you need to use those contacts to stop that from happening, because otherwise they'll be able to chase you to the end of the earth.
Yeah, I wonder, do they keep them all in one central location?
Yeah, do you have to break in and get your blood?
Yeah.
That's insane.
A little heist.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so if it's me, I'm putting that in Grin somewhere.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in the dismembered Lord's house, you know.
Right, it's like in the military academy or something.
Exactly, like somewhere like that. Oh no, you know what? And I bet Barker's saying this in the chat. It wouldn't be in Grin. It would be in the Ardent Scar, where they train the Marrow in Sphere.
Yes, lots of training and recruits.
When
and
you
like
are going through your training, it's basically like in the military where they, you shave your head and they give you your dog tags and all that. They basically take it then, and there's because Caius Vecus is the Lord of Ash. There, he's this vampire lord. And so imagine how he could probably tell you the people by their smell. Like he could be like, oh yeah, I remember that one. I mean, that's just, it's creepy, but it's like weird vampire creepy.
No, it's good. It's very good. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is a pretty good one. I like the idea of maybe young recruits, maybe working out who you are. And then you have the decision, like, do you attack these young recruits? Are there any rookies? And yeah, it'd be a lot of tension.
That's crazy. So, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Aquibian?
Yeah, that's Connor.
Oh, okay. Aquibian. The blood vaults wherein is stored the blood of all Marrow, all political figures, and all allies and enemies of the state.
Oh, yep.
Canon, baby. That's so cool.
I've just got like whirled up into this hype fest where I just want to play this game, and I've lost where we were in terms of the actual preparation of this. So those are lots of amazing ideas, I think, for session 1. I don't think all of that would fit in session 1. I think that's session 1, 2, probably 3 and 4 as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm lousy about that.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like,
let's zoom in on the specific opening
let's zoom
scene.
In on the opening scene.
You're in some village, backwater village in somewhere far from the capital. And you've been, let's tie it in with your game. So they're in like the Baygrave area somewhere.
Oh,
right?
sick.
Some village somewhere, and you're part of the force that's there to stop people from rebelling. The garrison, basically, of Baygrave at the moment. And you've been there for like a couple of weeks, and you've been doing a lot of shit. A lot of brutal shit to put down elven rebels.
Yeah.
Who are furious that like the Marrow have taken control of like the big tree. I can't remember what it's called. The big tree.
Talus,
yeah. And so that's like a religious matter. It's like a cultural matter. It's a really important thing. So there'd be rebels all over the place. And you've been spending weeks here cracking skulls. And that's not what really you signed up for. You signed up to like be in the Legion. And like you saw the cool posters that they have where, they're like moving forward and marching into tomorrow and whatever. Like that's the shit you bought.
Yeah.
And you thought you were doing instead of like kicking the shit out of peasants in some backwater village. And then it's like, this is weeks later and you're in the marketplace and the captain is here. Some captain is here to inspect the troops. And while he's here, something happens. An elf throws a tomato or something at him, right? Something harmless, but problematic. And then he says, crucify them all. Everyone in the village. Or whatever it is, right? Something ridiculously violent.
Wow.
And I think maybe that's the point where you and your people are like, whoa, what? And everyone's looking at you, expecting you to do the job that you've been told to do. And maybe that's a good point where you're like, I cannot do that. And importantly, there has to be more people on your side of the Jesus, I don't want to do this, than the yes, sir. But if you can sense that there's more of you on the side of like, I don't want to, then you can turn it. And you can get the elves to help you, and then you kill the captain, and then you run.
Do you think that should be the moment they turn should be the very beginning then?
I think so.
Because it is very dramatic, it's got to be said.
Yeah, that's a huge explosion. And it also sets a lot of shockwaves off. Like they have to make their choices and how is, the crowd around them going to react and all that. And so Lloyd, I mean, I'm not saying like literally set them. I mean, you can if you want in the same universe, but I was going to say the villain that you've created could create an opportunity for this where I always imagine that the Band of the Hawk is what I've been calling them, which I think is also from the anime Berserk, but I don't care because we didn't put it in the book. So the Band of the Hawk, I always imagine their tabards being green and gold, not red. And that he's so revered and loved by the Legion that he has his own uniform and they have the Hawk insignia. But because of that, I think that they look down on, we'll call him Red Marrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could see a ranking, not the Hawk, but a ranking commander or like captain being, because they're coming down from Talus into Faygrave, the Band of the Hawk is. So they're used to hard, rigid, you follow, you don't disrespect me.
Yeah.
So I could see maybe, and of course I'm just spitballing, someone from the Band of the Hawk who technically has rank orders a bunch of Red Marrow. Hey, did you see what they just did? Crucify them all. And the Red Marrow are like, what? Like, that's not how we roll around here.
Yeah.
But that would also make it so that now, if they did kill that person, word would get back to the commander, who is this incredible, like that would not be someone you would want to piss off. So I don't know if you want to go in that direction, but I mean, you created the character. So
I think that could be extremely fun. I think as well, you could, if you're running the game, if you think of this villain who's like trying to find rebels at the root and not kill individual rebels, you could deliberately let them get away and follow them and follow their trail and stuff, you know? So it's like, oh, it's really easy. They're not really chasing us that much. And we keep getting away from them, even though we like engage with them. They seem to like flee really quickly and whatever. And so the players are like, what's happening? How come they're not? And then they get to the rendezvous point and there's like 150 bad boys there waiting for them.
It's the Millennium Falcon on Bespin, effectively. Yeah, it's gotcha. We're waiting for you to get to this point or whatever, for sure. I like that very much. And I think also they perhaps once they've gotten away, I would like to see some opportunity for them to maybe even make it a skill challenge as well, to see if you can not only overthrow these people that have ordered this crucifixion, but in some way try and protect people, or I don't know.
It would be a cool opening to fight with the village against the Marrow, I think, even though you are the Marrow, you know? Like it would be clear, and I think that's often the case where like the soldiers or the police or whatever are outnumbered, you know? And you're like, this isn't right, we shouldn't be doing this shit. Like, this is incorrect. And then you sort of get the sense that actually a lot of these dudes have pitchforks and some of them have swords and they just live in the village and maybe we could win it, you know? And it should be difficult, I think, to fight other Marrow, but it's a good way to kick it off, I think. It's like a big...
Just an amazing. You can think of these amazing moments where there's like a knock on the door and there's some enemy Marrow inside, and they open the door and they see one of the player characters who's dressed as Marrow and says, "Oh, good, you're here." And then that Marrow just goes bam and just stabs him and something like that. Like that Game of Thrones moment where the Kingsguard turns on Tyrion. Like he looks at him for a second, and then there's that moment, and then boo, it happens.
Yeah.
That's insane. And you also have a clear if you wanted to paint it this way. It could be, I don't know how many of the Band of the Hawk you'd want to be there, but could also be very clearly, for the players, it's green versus red.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or if you want there to be confusion, but that would make it so that, well, why aren't the townspeople attacking us? It's like, well, because they're all wearing green and they've been kicking around here for the last 2 weeks, really being jackasses.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh, these are the less bad ones.
I think that's actually a really important point, because it does actually sort of, it's like, it just paints whichever side you're on effectively. So in terms of telling not only describing the combat as well, which can be quite confusing, can't it? Like if you're doing it theatre of the mind and there's a lot of people all wearing the same thing, like it can be very difficult.
Yeah,
so that helps as well, for sure.
Your squad is there. Maybe there's 2 squads of Red Marrow there, and there's like a bit high rank, like we said, maybe it's an Arcseer or like some commander, somebody important from the Green Marrow, from the Band of the Hawk, and a couple of like other elites. And so they're outnumbered, but they outrank you, and like maybe one of them is a particular nutcase, you know, like sadistic, awful.
Yeah.
And when the fight kicks off, you know, conveniently you guys make it, but a lot of your squad have died, and so there's the 5 of you or whatever that make it out of there, you know.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's got to be costly, I think, you know.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be really cool. And I think and again, this is all just WhatsApp voice message lore. So, but I'm pretty sure the commander is like, so there's no rank of general, but there can be. So if you wanted the crazy to be a commander, you could, which is still, that's the dude with the jaw and the fin across the head. But then the next down would be the captain, who has the fin that goes straight down the head. So basically, depending on what rank you would want your main bad guy to be, you could scale it down that way, or you could invent one rank above commander and make a Marrow general, which doesn't exist but could.
Right. Or it's like some noble officer from like a Crucian house who like wears a Marrow uniform and like something like that, right? Somebody who's like important politically, but maybe isn't super high up in the Legion because of ability, but because of who they are.
That's actually pretty cool, because they would be very entitled, and it would also create, because now if you're talking about that, somewhere in Grin, they're going to get a message from a Missive Crow soon. And now you have a Crucian house against you. That is as bad as the Marrow. It's just a different kind of bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So that would bake in a lot of conflict.
Involved. I like that they're all in their own houses and things. I think that's so awesome.
That's a session 1.
Yeah, that's sick.
Fucking did it.
That was
it into the space.
We did. We usually do questions. Do we have time for questions?
I'm down. Yeah. I'm down for a few questions.
Oh God, it was in the other post. Do you have the other post open, Lloyd?
Oh God, yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh my God. It is 80% of our content.
So 2 things. Barker. Well, one thing I want to say, if I may I shill Barker's Patreon? Is that allowed?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, please.
Yeah, of course.
So go to Patreon. If you see the chat on this video, you see that Barker is a brilliant storyteller. He's a very creative person, and he's really good at what he does, which is inspiring others. Go to Ignite Inspire the Story on Patreon and sign up, become a patron. It's dirt cheap, and you get inspirational stuff all month. And it's just like, there's daily stuff, there's monthly stuff, and it's the kick in the pants a lot of people need to prep and actually do things. So I just wanted to show that real quick. He said, and it makes sense, if I were a Talisar and the Marrow commander called for my whole town to be crucified, I'd want a piece of any Marrow, no matter the color uniform. I think that that's a good point, because there would probably be elves who were just stabbing all the Marrow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
yeah, they might
one
just
of
come after you.
The initial challenges is you have to like take your mask off and be like, whoa, we're with you, and show them that you're fighting other Marrow and like try and navigate the chaos, right? Or just hide, I guess, is another.
Or just run. Or that's an option as well. Like they might not choose to be involved. They might just run for the hills, which I think is fairly valid. Another thing, whilst we've been talking about Marrow all this time, I saw an excellent post from you today, Tim, about Marrow. And I want you to tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so absolutely. So on October 19th, we are partnering with Westphalia Miniatures, and we're going to do one of maybe many. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we're going to do a Kickstarter where you can actually get minis of the Dismembered Legion. And there's going to be different ranks and poses, and we're doing different gear, and it's not set in stone yet, all the minor details, but you can see some of the sculpts that are absolutely mind-blowingly accurate for the scale. And so we think we're going to start with like a handful and then have some stretch goals to maybe unlock some other ranks and poses, but it's more than surreal. I can't explain to you. It's one thing to have written a book that's almost 500 pages. It's another thing to have minis of your intellectual property. I'm still not there yet. It's still not real to me.
It's amazing to see them, because I remember when you first posted the first art teaser of the Marrow and how incredible they looked. And I remember I think one of them had a flail. I was like, I'm really glad they chose a flail. You don't see enough flails.
Never see flails. Yeah.
I mean, maybe arguably they weren't used in medieval history, but we ignore that. It looks really cool. And then today, I think Full Circle came around and there's a picture of a Marrow mini holding a flail. And I was like, there it is. There's that flail again. Lloyd, have you got the questions?
Yeah. What? Yes. I was like, what questions are you talking about, Rob? What? Questions that need answering. Crystals that need answering. My friend Tim, for years thought that when Gandalf says questions that need answering, he thought he was talking about crystals just for such a long time, and he was like running off to answer the questions of the crystals.
It's like a side plot. There's Lord of the Rings, and then there's like the Duke of the Crystals.
That's amazing.
Okay, there's a question from Tim here, but I think you've already asked that.
We did.
Start of
I
this.
kicked it off with it. Yeah.
So then Tyler says, is there a perfect amount of direction, road signs, railroads, threads, etc., to give players for session 1? What is it that gets the game up and running, the party in motion, and people on track to pursue some goal? I read it. You answer it. That's the system that we have.
Well, it's true. It is the system, but we have also spent most of this talking about exactly that. I think, but just to reiterate, I think a lot of that is decided if you've been following this series, then a lot of that would have been decided in session 0 in terms of an agreement of where people need to go. Therefore, I don't think you quite need to leave as many breadcrumbs as perhaps you would if you were just dropping in with nothing. But that said, I think session 1 does need a bit more direction from the GM in terms of management. I think a lot of people are still a little bit uneasy about like when to come in, like when should their character like have the spotlight or whatever. We always talk about the spotlight. I'm just rambling here.
Yeah,
I think else.
I think it depends on the kind of game. So in old ways, like there's never that much of like a push from me, I think, in terms of plot. But in session 1, there has to be something, because what you're doing is in session 1, especially in a sandbox game, you're setting up all the different threads that people can pull at their leisure. Players can pull at, but they have to. You have to start by telling them, here are the 10 things that are happening. Which one do you want? So I think you got to do that in session 1. Like however you do it, drop in rumors in a tavern, or drop in ravens from fellow houses, or whatever it is. Just give them something to go on, and then from session 2 onwards, the game runs itself, I think.
So the other thing too that I'll say is that I can't overstate how it is okay to surprise players as a game master with the details, but clearly and explicitly talk about the other things. So it's okay. And I used to think it was wrong because I'm the magician and it's secret and I'm going to surprise you. And it's like, I still can do that with the execution and the twists, but I highly recommend saying, hey, based on the session 0, I think a great place to start would be in the city, because that's where you could be doing X, you could be doing Y. As much as the players, and this is my opinion, as much as the players want to have agency, I think most players secretly also want you to do the thing. They want to show up and have some of it where it's like, no, tell me where we are. And I think a good balance is pitch them exactly on where you're going to start. Hey, I want to start with the revolution. I think that'll be really interesting. And you don't go deep and you don't talk about the scenes we talked about. That's all surprise. So how you do it is the surprise. And then if someone says, well, actually, before we do that, can I have one scene where I'm at my house or what? Yes. Boom. And then you basically decide where you want to start. And that's okay to talk about. It doesn't have to be mysterious and, you'll see in session 1. It's okay to be like, what do you guys think? And then seed that in. And then one other thing, I talk a lot, but
it's fine, go, man. All good.
One of the other things that I found is those 10 things you talked about, Lloyd, that you've prepared. I will pick, like you say, 2 or 3, and I put them into the mouth of a connection of one of the players, so that it's not an insight roll and all this other stuff. It's like, hey, you're in the black market. You see the normal vendor that you're on, and he says, hey, have you heard about the such and such and such and such? And then you just kind of like, now you have all these rumors and whispers of, because people gossip, So that's my hack to do that, is have a pseudo trusted NPC drop in plot hooks so that it's like, oh, okay, I'll look into it. Not, I want to see if he's lying,
Right. Do not hide important information behind a skill check ever. If you need to play or something, never put it behind a skill roll, because if it fails, you're just like, okay.
Yep. Want to make another one?
Yeah. You can have advantage, actually. Like,
I just remembered.
So one trick I do on that is tell them the important information. then ask them for a skill check. And if they really nail it, I'll give them either more or a secret or an angle, or some people think it's false or whatever. So that's the way. If you still like the rolly, you could give them the information and then roll for a bonus.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, always give them something for sure. Yeah, but never important information behind a die roll for sure. Carol says, how much of the campaign do you lay out before you begin? Do you have the main storyline done, or maybe just the main idea and boss, or just wing it and lay out the first session and see where it goes?
I am just putting, building it as the train is coming. Like, I don't plan many sessions ahead, almost ever. And that's, for me, much easier. I don't want to plan something and then have it not happen. I don't want to put effort in and then the players not be interested. I don't I want to see where they want to go, and then I only ever prep one session ahead. I prep the setting more than I prep the sessions, you know? So I know who the characters are, what their motivations are, whatever, the NPCs and stuff. But I try not to prep like, in this session, we'll do this. Because what if they don't? What if they don't want to? What if they get absorbed with something else? And if you have certain kinds of players, like, they will do that. They'll be like, actually, today I'm going to not do anything that we said we would do, and I'm going to wander over in this direction and see what's here. Totally fine.
Yeah. It's a weird thing you have to resist, really, is it's in that word storyline. It really is not your job. The storyline is much more based on the decisions your players will be making. So that's up to them. How the story goes is entirely their responsibility. Obviously, you agree on a number of things, as we've suggested, like your starting point and your particular philosophies and ideologies that bind you together as a group. But really, those decisions should be the key. And, you know, it's the present problems, not solutions thing that we all of us always say. What else? Have you got anything else to add to that at all, guys?
I was just going to say that the prep problems, not solutions, the most fun thing to do is try to prep a problem that you can't figure out a solution to. Make it that hard. You can do that. It's allowed. Like, and by doing it, the players always astound me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really smart. So in that, I just always throw that in there. Like, don't prep a problem and think, okay, they could probably solve it this way or this way. Cause that's halfway prepping a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're sort of banking on something. Don't just be like, yeah, I don't know, I'm going to throw a bleak storm at them. They might die, you know.
Yeah, they might die.
And the players will love you for it because, like, dang, that was hard, you know.
Sure. Who we got next?
We have Caius of Caius Corner fame.
Caius Corner, hot angles incoming.
Angles, yeah.
90 degrees.
You said
yeah.
hot ankles for a second.
Me too. And I was like,
all right.
Caius got this. He does a lot of walking, you know.
Yeah, he probably has great ankles.
The pictures of his hikes, he's probably got amazing ankles.
What do you think is worth a player prepping before coming to session one? The character sheet, of course, but what else? That's a good question. Caius preps more than most people when it comes to prepping a setting, I think. I would say that if you're playing in an established setting and there is lore about where you are or where you come from, it's good to know that. You know, if you're in Westeros and you live in the in the north and whatever, you know, it's good to know about those customs. It's good to know about like Weirwoods. It's good to know about some of the lords and stuff around you. Like, that's something useful to do, I think. What do you hear?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's unfair, really, because Caius always does an immense amount of prep, and it's you kind of get spoiled if you've got someone like Caius in your game because they give you so much to work with, and I think would be quite and you feel confident from that behavior that you can just present them with anything and they'll be ready to bounce with it, you know. So I think having that attitude, I think, is probably the most important thing. Having that attitude, understanding that not only are you a player, you're bringing something with you to the table. You are ready to riposte whatever the DM sends your way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think for me, so like whenever I prep as a player, if in my opinion, if you want to be bringing as much weight as the game master, just in a different area. Have an idea of who your character is, just a seed, because mine always change. My hack is I pick a character from a movie that I like, and I just try to pretend like I'm them. And I'm not good enough at it that anybody ever catches it, but it gives me an idea. So like in the Provoker season 2, I am 100% playing Star-Lord. I'm playing Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's what I'm doing. And so I lean on that. But as a player, if you don't want to even go that far, start the session with something that you want. It could be a glass of water, but if you have something that you want, that gives you a really good, like, radar when the DM starts asking you questions of how you act right away. Because if I want a glass of water, I'm going to go get a glass of water. So that could be whatever. So choose one thing that you want. Don't make it huge. Make it something small to medium. And the game master, I know as a GM, I love that. When a player tells me like, yeah, actually, I really want to find, and I keep using the black market as an example because we're using it in the current game I'm playing. Hey, I really want to try, like Matt, he wanted to get this specific tool, for his rogue. That's juicy because now I'm like, cool, I know what he wants. And that colors the rest of the scene. So have something that you want, as simple as that sounds. And the other hack is have an idea of who your character is, but not so much that you should be level 10, just a starting point. And I think that that's really good for a game master.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
And indeed, true for any character. All characters want something, don't they? And even if you go back to basics with Dungeons and Dragons, is they want to find the treasure at the end of the dungeon. Like, it's something that will drive them. It's something that they can always fall back to. I think that's really important.
In Fiasco, you, like, when you make your character, all you have is relationships with other characters and a need, right? So super good to have like at least a strong tie with one other character before you start. We usually do 2, I guess, in session 0s and stuff, so that you have bonds with 2 of the characters. And then a need is super useful to have, and you can just keep that to yourself or whatever. It's useful, but what drives you? What do you need to do? I need to get even, or I need to whatever. I need to become more powerful. I need to anything you can think of, but like that really helps drive you, I think, and if you can tie it into the setting that you're in before you start, even better.
Yeah.
I think, unless we have any questions in the chat, I think that's it, guys. I think we did it.
I think we've done it.
All right. I love it.
Right. We were going to have a competition because throughout this whole discussion, we've been talking about A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin, which is an excellent book created by this lovely human being here, along with many other talented folk. We were going to have a competition, but I can't remember what we were going to say, what the competition was going to be. So I think at some point, probably in the middle of next week, we should post what that competition is. And if you want to win A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin from the Die Is Cast, then follow the competition. You can find those details over on the Absolute Tabletop Facebook community. Go over there if you are somehow. I don't think anyone who isn't there listens to this. I don't know. If that's the case, then go there and like that page, and you will see what that competition is.
Love it.
Yeah, smashed it.
Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Because I suddenly realized I said, we're gonna have a competition, and I was like, but I don't know what the competition is.
Yeah. Well,
so it's a surprise.
Yeah,
it's a surprise.
You'll find out at some point next week.
Yeah, and the value of it, it's a PDF copy of the book, which is $24.95, so it's like $25. If you already own it, I always recommend, this is your call, guys, I always recommend people participate anyway, because you can then give that code. It's a code, so they can just take it and get their own copy.
Yep. Let's try and figure out, let's do a competition for next time. What'll it be?
Yeah, we should just do it now, shouldn't we?
We should say it now, yeah.
Like, I have pushed it to next week out of panic, but really,
yeah. But let's listen. We're all about improvising on this channel. It's all we just out of nowhere.
Okay.
What about
Are you have you chosen a topic for the next Die is Cast, or?
Good question. No.
Listen,
organizational skills laid bare, Tim.
No, listen,
everything is this.
A peek behind the curtain. It's just a little man, and he's like pulling a wheel.
We don't plan this.
That's so real, though. Like when we film Tabletop Terrors, we always talk about how we're going to decide, and then we don't, and we figure it out that day. Occasionally, we'll send voice messages, but it's whatever problems you run into at the time. So I was going to try to tie it into whatever you were going to do next time, but maybe that's the contest, is coming up with a good topic for
come up with the topic of our next podcast.
And if we do yours, you get a free book.
Yeah. So we've kind of, in terms of CampaignForge, right? This is session 1. What comes next? Session 2, I guess. But do we want do we just then keep doing we just run the game then is the next thing?
Yeah, exactly.
I was just going to say, is this a real game or is this theoretical?
Well, we thought we were going to run it at some point, but mainly theoretical. And we thought, well, perhaps some point we'll get to it. But yeah, that's a shambles.
One of the things we've talked about doing on Tabletop Terrors, and I'd love for you guys to figure it out for me.
Okay.
Is doing exactly what you're doing. So in session 2, so what I would do is I'd write down the names. This was the plan. So I'm just telling you how we were planning on doing it. I was going to write down the names of these fictional characters and just a brief, boilerplate of like who they are and what they want. Then we were going to have a conversation of, okay, and this would take place either behind the scenes or this could be part of the podcast where, okay, this is what happened. So-and-so did this and they reacted this way, and you just make stuff up. It's just storytelling. Maybe you can roll dice, whatever. But you then say, okay, so now I have to prep session 2 based on these things that happened. And then you just theoretically prep, and then you do the fake, whatever round where the game happens off screen. And you come back and say, okay, this is what happened. So how do we prep? Because really a campaign is just the work in between. It's gathering the pieces of the last session and then slowly building this thing that you can call back to and eventually end it. So I don't know if that helps or if that even sounds like a good idea to you.
I'm enjoying so much watching Rob try and piece his brain together. I think that sounds interesting.
So what's the question? Prep session 2 based off the information we've given you in this podcast.
Yeah, so you're saying the question so what I would do is the contest would be, you say what happened in the first session. Very brief, but it's like you give, okay, in the first session, this happened. Here's a list of 4 characters, and keep it lean, super lean, militant type who needs revenge, whatever. And then you tell them what happened in session 1. And then the contest is like, what would you do in session 2?
Yeah.
How would you follow up? What would be the next thread you hit on? What would you, and then you're the winner. You actually prep that session.
Right. So let's decide what happens in the session.
So what happened in the session is there was the initial outbreak of the fight, and then perhaps they found themselves held up in the main hall of this small settlement, with villagers backing away from reinforcements. Like perhaps that session ended with reinforcements from the Marrow showing up. So basically survivors have flocked to the church or have flocked to the Elderman's Hall. Okay. And that's where it's left. You're barricaded inside a structure with some survivors, and that's where it was left. How about that?
That works for me.
It's pretty tasty.
Okay.
In between this and the next one, we'll put up a written post of that.
Yeah, that would be fun. And then you could also maybe even let people say what else happened in session 1 if you want to, for your pitch of what happened in session 2, what that we didn't mention happened in your session 1.
Yes.
So they could also hang their own Chekhov's guns for where they see it going.
That works. Okay, so in between now and next session, there'll be a post that says, here's what happened in session 1 of Renegades. What do you think happened? What happens next? And if it's real good, we'll give you a book.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm so glad you guys made me an official part of the podcast moving forward.
Yep.
Of course.
This is gonna...
You can't
listen,
escape now, Tim.
If I had the time, I would invite myself immediately.
You're welcome anytime.
Like
Our door is always our door is always open.
This has been really fun.
We did it.
Amazing. Big thanks to Tim for dropping by. Thank you ever so much, and for helping us plan our own competition. For Christ. Anyway,
yeah, we should have prepped at least that part. We should have prepped at least that part. You know?
Yeah. I just saw Connor's comment. He said, "Man, Tim's back must be sore carrying this show." That's messed up.
It's an absolute shambles. It's a shambles.
It's fun though. It was really fun.
It's classic Diascast. It's what we're best at. It's why people tune in every week, because it's always the same shit, and they love the chaos.
It's great.
We're still on the internet.
Yeah,
right?
we're still,
This is still going, right? This is still the show.
Okay, we should do the traditional closing of the show, which is
raise your hand and say bye until it's over.
Yeah.
Ready?
Is that really how it is?
Yeah.
It really is. Hand up.
It depends.
We
didn't say that. We didn't say that.
Bye.
Bye.